In doing my research for this question, I've been kind of led to believe that depending on the use, depending on the constraints placed upon the propellant or explosives, they can pretty much be used interchangeably. Um, because in research it was stating that propellants are oftentimes more stable than explosives, but from directly working with explosives such as C4, um, rockets, various other explosives in the Marine Corps, they're very stable. They're not temperature sensitive. They're not shock sensitive. Um, you literally need a lasting cap to initiate. So you need an initiator charge to set off your primary explosive charge. So I would argue that explosives are high explosives, especially plasticized ones. Um, yeah, pretty much any modern high explosive is a very, very stable item. Now, we could look at potassium nitrate, I believe, or is it ammonium? I believe it's, yes, it is potassium nitrate. Fertilizer, right? But when exposed to fire, right, we saw what happened in Beirut, and then there was some shenanigans in Iran that just happened, but that's still being decided upon what exactly happened. But Beirut definitely was potassium nitrate, and it's all about how it's stored. Um, so the containers, right? Is it going to be? Is the vessel going to pressurize, right? Um, there's all sorts of factors that are going to either enhance the explosive force, right? It's going to enhance volatility, or it's going to decrease volatility. Temperature, right? Increase in temperature, that's going to increase the rates at which we're seeing degradation or um, when some things break, when some compounds break down, they release hydrogen gas. They release various other compounds that are either flammable, they're carcinogenic, or potentially harmful for people around them. But alongside that, um, yeah, it's all about how they're used, right? Because I've seen plenty of video on YouTube of people making pipe bombs out of Pyrex, right? So you can use a traditional black powder propellant, and when you compact it and put it in a vessel that can be pressurized into a very high degree of that pressure, you create a bomb, right? So I would argue that it's all about the rate of refinement and the capsule that the explosive is contained within. Those are the two criteria that I would denote as quintessential for determining if an explosive is highly volatile or not, right? Because in the end scope, that's what you're looking at when you're looking at chemicals, right? You're looking at reactivity slash volatility. Like what happens if I introduce this and at what rate, right? Like these are questions that scientifically we understand and we can hypothesize and theorize preemptively before embarking on these scientific journeys. So the next one, part two, it says should the firearms industry find a way to move away from current propellants? Maybe, but I would argue that the lead vapor that's created from shooting has a much higher effect than the powders used, right? Because there's definitely people injured every year due to improper loading, right? There improper firearms inspection. There can be people shoot old guns that aren't inspected by a licensed professional, and they blow up in their face. They run hot loads through old guns. They run hot loads through guns that aren't rated for it, right? You need to make sure your barrel is a plus P or plus P plus rated for throwing those loads down it. Or even personal defense rounds. Those are oftentimes loaded a little hotter. And if you're doing mag after mag of personal defense rounds, although I would argue in a 21st century handgun, unless you're shooting a SIG, because those suck. They did not pass drop tests. Army freaking, I'm gonna get sidetracked on that one, but yeah, if you think SIG is a quality firearm, well, at least they make some. But the 226 or whatever model it was that the Army adopted as their primary handgun, no, that's a bum gun right there. It's a bum gun. So I would say that as far as volatility, we're dealing with explosives here. Okay? You're dealing with a firearm. There's going to be some caution that needs to be taken. For instance, when you're playing with fireworks, when you know with gasoline, various other acetone. If you're working with solvents, you need to be careful about the vapors that, for one, you don't ingest them, right? You don't breathe them in, but also if they accumulate in a confined space, the flammability aspect, like, you get a spark and you can have an explosion. So very important to be aware of what you're working with and how it can affect your environment. So besides for the lead, I mean, I think the firearms industry is doing pretty good, pretty okay.